Hey friends, welcome back to our channel. This episode is right along with the theme that we've already been talking about. So if you've been following along with the last 4 episodes and you've gotten value from those, put in the comments below, what have you gotten from that?
You're going to want to stick around to the end where we're going to talk about no complaint challenge for 30 days. No complaining for 30 days. And probably some really great bloopers.
Yeah, you don't want to miss those. Today's episode is what are some of the things that really create the arguments to begin with? And one of them is being critical. Have you ever felt your spouse was being critical towards you, maybe even attacking your character?
And how does that make you feel when you're receiving the criticism from your spouse?
I know for me, it always feels like an attack. Like you didn't even stop to think about what I might have going on for me. You just choose to jump in and attack.
That's what it feels like to me too. It feels like an immediate attack. And sometimes I'm like, can't you see my heart, or can't you see a bigger picture to this? Or did you consider some of the things I have going on?
Right.
So obviously criticism is destructive. Why is it destructive?
Well, number one, it is typically a personal attack.
That's the way it feels to me.
Like we just talked about. It's an attack on the person's character. And so I know for me, I'm going to defend if that happens. So that's the first reason why criticism is not effective.
And number two, it can make you feel defensive and resentful.
Oh yeah.
That's the way I
felt
feel.
that many, many times. And number three, criticism is damaging to the relationship over time. And I know for the first 12 years of our marriage, we were very critical of each other. And it did some severe damage. And most importantly, it destroys the trust.
So what it does for me is it injures my heart. I am thinking, you don't see my heart. You're not a safe place right now for this conversation emotionally. And a little by little, it does erode away our relationship. It erodes away our trust of each other. I'm thinking more and more, does she have my best interest in mind? Are you really on my team?
Right. And it also just feels like, if I'm receiving criticism from you, it feels like I am less than, I am like just not important and not loved and all of those things as well.
I think criticism's really strong. I think complaining is not as strong, but I think complaining still has an impact on our marriage. I think it would be important if we just define what is criticism, what is complaining.
Sure. So we asked Siri, what is criticism? And she says the expression of disapproval of someone or something based on perceived faults and mistakes. So it's really focusing on, I'm perceiving that you are intentionally having this fault and mistake. And it's actually offending me. Complaining is the expression of dissatisfaction or annoyance about something. So again, it's an annoyance that I'm having. This brings up an example that we have in our marriage. And while I share this story, just put yourself in your own marriage, your own circumstances that are between you and your spouse as I tell this story.
I think it's good to share these practical stories because you go through these things too in your life. And the one we're going to share is really silly.
It is.
But aren't they all?
Right.
Most of these little things that really just irritate us and annoy us and get under our skin. And I'm like, you have bad intentions for me and I'm annoyed that you're doing that.
Right. Like if you really loved me, you would not be doing this.
Yeah.
And
so
really, that's not what we're thinking.
That's right. So share an example.
Okay. So it wasn't too long ago, a couple months ago, Travis and I talked about we really like how the kitchen looks when all the countertops are cleaned off, all throughout the day. Because what was happening is clutter was happening in our kitchen. And when we work at home, it just feels very cluttered. And so one of the areas that gets cluttered is our coffee area, where we're mixing up our coffee and adding all the wonderful goodies to it. And they get left out. And so after we had that conversation, I feel like we did really good for a week or two. And then I started noticing I was still putting the things back in the cabinet and someone else was not. Who's that? Who are you talking about? And so it's starting to bother me. And when I take a bigger look at why is that bothering me, what's actually under the surface is he's not doing something he said he would do. So this goes on for several weeks, and I'm really now starting to become annoyed by this. I'm starting to think about, like, what can I say to him that will make him put this stuff away? So I don't keep putting it away, because what was happening is I was putting it away, and I'm thinking he should be cleaning up after himself. Why can't he clean up after himself? I'm cleaning up. I'm doing my part.
A lot of ruminating, a lot of thoughts going around. And what I heard you say is lots of thoughts going on, like, why can't he just put it back? And
What's wrong with him?
it's like making it louder in your head.
Turning that volume up.
Have you experienced that where your spouse does something and then you're taking it personal? Like, I have already mentioned to them, do this. I need you to do this thing. And when you see it's not happening, I imagine that volume gets turned up. He doesn't love me. If he loved me, he would put that up. He's doing this intentionally.
If I can't trust him to do the little things, how can I trust you in the big things?
That's a good one.
That's not an actual thought, I think, that
That's
goes
good.
through our mind, but it is happening subconsciously. Like, I am thinking, is he going to do what he said?
Because I did say, you told me, hey, would you mind putting these up when you're done? Yeah, I think I could do that.
What was also interesting, I think I mentioned it even one time, and you said, I do put them back. And I was like, really?
Yeah, in my mind, I thought, well, I do put them back, but I know that I feel like you leave them out. And
Yeah, that's what you said. And I was like, I know you just didn't say
Wow.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're just remembering that little piece right now. But I was like, I can't believe you think it's me leaving it out when I am intentionally putting it back every time. But I think, when it's a new action or new behavior that we're trying to implement in our lives, our old programs are much stronger.
They
And
are.
I should have really looked at that. I should have looked at, this is a new thing that we're doing, and I should have had a lot of grace with you. But instead, I was just complaining about it in my head, and that incessant voice that just never stops telling me about all the things I need to say to you to get your attention. That right
Did
there.
you rehearse it?
I think I did.
Did you, like, obviously, I'm not doing what it is you wanted me to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in integrity of putting it back like I said I would and like you requested.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's annoying to you that this is
It's
happening.
getting under my skin.
And you're going to have to address it again.
Right.
What are you thinking about when it comes to how I'm going to address this with Travis again? Are you coming up with multiple different ways I can say it?
Mm-hmm.
You thinking about different ways it'll land with me? How is he going to receive this?
Yeah. What was really great about it is in all of our training that we've had, we've learned that there's another option. And this is what I landed on, and this is what we want to present to you today, is that instead of complaining and criticizing you, which is what I wanted to do, I wanted to just be like, what is wrong with you? Instead, I presented a request to you. Stating a request is a much more effective way of communication that actually gets the need and desire that I have met in a healthy way. Whether you
Yes.
end up saying, yes, I can do that, or no, I cannot, it still is a healthier way to communicate about the thing that I have a problem with.
The request makes it about her, not about me. It's about what you need in this moment.
Right.
It doesn't criticize me. It doesn't fall on me. Obviously, it's something that I'm doing that needs to be changed. But you're not blaming me in that request.
Right. Right. And so I came to you with the request of, hey, Lovey, which, by the way, we just started adapting this. I actually didn't use that when we had this conversation. But we're taking a course right now, and one of the things she recommended is that we use a really special word that would immediately diffuse the situation. And so we use the word, hey, Lovey.
Yeah. Especially if you listen from judgment. I have a tendency to listen to you, like whatever's about to come out of her mouth when it comes to a serious conversation, whatever's about to come out, she's judging me.
Yes.
And I want to be defensive and put a wall up. Have you done that?
Well,
And so I need to be able to remove that judgment out of the way. And when you say something like, hey, Lovey, It's not demeaning. It's not sarcasm. It's not you're trying to manipulate me. It's
Right.
something we've already agreed upon that is there, that's funny, and it diffuses because wouldn't I want to listen to her from her best intentions?
Yeah.
Wouldn't I want to hear her heart the way she's really intending to display it and not the way that I perceive it?
Yeah.
Because I'm
That's huge.
wrong most of the time. And so when I hear this,
What?
what just happened? What did I say?
You're not right all the time?
Oh, goodness.
Are you
Did I just
serious?
say that?
I love you more for saying that, just so you know. It even took me a minute to get it. Whoa.
Oh.
I'm gonna
Bring it back.
rewind, replay.
Because I'm
huge.
wrong. Because I'm
huge.
wrong. Because I'm wrong most of the time.
Thanks for the admitting of it. Things I already know.
Where was I?
Most of the time you're wrong, is what I heard. And I didn't hear anything else.
Okay, most of the time I am wrong the way I hear her, the way
That
I
is
hear
true.
you. And so using this is a great tool.
Yes.
It reminds me of another tool that we use whenever you go to share something with me and you have something really on your heart. There's another tool I've used where I pause you and say, hey, do you want me to listen to you or fix this?
And what do I mostly say?
I want you to listen to me. I don't want you to fix it.
Right.
And that's a valuable tool too. So we need these tools. We need a coach. I need you to coach me. And
I
by
got you,
using
babe.
those things like, hey, Lovey,
Yeah, so
I can let my wall down.
So I come up, hey, Lovey, I have a request. And my request is I know we talked about earlier that we wanted to keep our countertops really clean because it makes us feel very organized and we like that. And so I just have a request, and I know it's hard to remember to do this because we just started, but would you mind continuing to put the coffee stuff back in the cabinet for me? Is that something that you can do for me?
Wow. Yeah, thanks for giving that request. The way I would have heard that if you were to come to me and I felt judgment is I would have got defensive and I would have got upset that you're asking me to do that. But when I hear you in that way, obviously it diffuses the ability for me to feel judgment, and I can see that what you're really wanting is a clean countertop. I can see that you've made this request before. I know you have. I know it's in my mind. And so if I become defensive about it, I'm just shooting myself in my own foot because I've already agreed that that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And so I'm able to see that. I'm able to avoid me getting upset. I'm able to avoid these arguments that we've been talking over the last several videos.
Yeah.
And I can see your heart and I can see, yeah, I've agreed to do that. It takes nothing for me to be able to put it back up there. Sometimes I do forget. So absolutely, I will absolutely put it back there. And there may be times I'll forget. And my request is you just immediately, gently, lovingly remind me, and I'll be absolutely fine with it.
Yeah. Well, there's also something else that's happening there is I'm giving him a choice. Because
Yes.
if something your spouse has agreed to do is not working for them, maybe their schedule, maybe their who knows what, maybe something is not working. It gives them an opportunity to say, hey, I appreciate you bringing that up. And I have noticed I've been leaving it out. And what's going on for me is I'm getting the kids ready for school, I'm getting their lunches, and then we're out the door and I forget. Do you think that you would mind putting that away for me if I forget? Is that something that you could do for me? Because I just feel like I am not able to put it away. You know,
Yes.
it gives that
Great.
opportunity for your spouse to have, an alternative.
So I'm not
because of
pinned into a
choice.
corner. I love that, Adele. I love the
Yeah.
way that you explained that. It's in these conversations and good communication with your spouse where you're actually expressing your wants and your needs very effectively. Most couples have a problem communicating what you really want and what you really need, and I expect you to know it.
Well, and I beat her around the bush about
Yes,
it.
yeah.
Like, I'm trying to get you to do something and you're not getting it. And that's where I need to be critical with you because you just don't get it.
Right. That's good. Yeah. So we want to avoid criticizing and complaining, and we want to go toward request. Here's 3 simple tips that you can take away right now to be able to make those requests to your spouse. Number 1 is make your request really specific. Instead of saying, hey, would you mind just cleaning up? the kitchen, or would you just mind cleaning up the house today? Be very specific. Hey, would you mind doing the dishes and putting the coffee away before you leave today?
Yeah,
Would you
that's
mind taking the
specific.
trash out before this evening?
Right. It's very
Very
clear.
specific, very clear, and not, hey, would you mind doing the cleaning the house? There's a lot to do cleaning a house.
Right.
No thanks.
Yeah. Number two is always be respectful in your request. You want to avoid using words like you always, you never. Those kinds of words will create defensiveness because they're not actually accurate. And so be very respectful in approaching your spouse with your request. Instead, try focusing on the behavior rather than the character.
Number three is be willing to compromise. I love how you said that earlier. When you make that request, they may not be able to uphold it. And so we need to have an open mindset with that request. Otherwise, this is demand, right? We need to have an open mindset with that request to be open to the compromise that may take place there.
That's right. And so many times that has happened with us. So it works. If you can learn to communicate your needs and desires through making requests in your marriage, you will be on a path to a much healthier relationship.
That's what I want.
Don't we all?
I want to have a great relationship with you. These arguments that we've been talking about over the last couple of episodes, I want to avoid that type of behavior.
Right. Yeah, and this is one way to avoid that. Now, let's talk about, are you the spouse receiving the criticism? We want to give you a few tips on dealing with your spouse's criticism.
Number one is not taking it personal.
The hardest one.
It's, yeah. I need to remember this is not about me. It's not about me. It's always about you, what you have going on in your heart, your belief system, your wants, your needs, whatever it is that you have going on, it's all about you.
Right.
It's not about me. That's number one.
Number two is do your best to stay calm. I know it is so hard when you're being criticized to be calm and patient. Really important to try, because if you get angry and defensive, it's only going to make the problem so much bigger. And that's where all the arguments, and then you may even end up in an argument because of it.
Yeah, one quick tool, breathe. If you
Take a
can
breath.
remember to take a deep breath immediately, that's the number one tool is deep, immediate breath so that you can stay engaged in this conversation. Otherwise, my prefrontal cortex, the part of executive decision making where I make great decisions, it
It's
goes
gone.
offline, and
Fight or flight,
all of a
freeze.
sudden, Adele, you're like this roaring lion that's going to attack me, this saber-toothed tiger that's coming after me, and you're my wife.
Yeah, that breath is just reminding your body, it's actually scientific, that it reminds your body
Everything's
we're
okay.
not running from a lion.
Everything's
We're
okay.
Your amygdala, you can actually avoid hijacking your amygdala with breathing. So it's very powerful.
Yeah, that leads us into number three. Number three is asking for clarification. When you have the ability to take a deep breath and you can stay engaged in the conversation without thinking that she's a saber-toothed tiger now, I can get clarity. Hey, I think what you were saying, it landed kind of harsh with me, and I know that's not your heart. But I do want to hear, will you tell me what it is you really want? Will you just give me clarity over this?
Most of the time, it's just because your spouse does not know how to get across to you the needs that they are having.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so if you can just keep in mind being curious with your spouse, asking for clarification, it will really help you understand what is actually going on for your spouse to begin with. It is amazing when you ask for clarification how much more of the picture you get to see rather than the saber-toothed tiger attacking you.
It is. Listen, criticism is abusive. It really attacks your spouse, and that's not who you're committed to being in a marriage. This is a partnership. This is a love for life. Wouldn't you want your partner, your spouse, to be that teammate for you, that you're encouraging each other, lifting each other up, not trying to tear each other down or think poorly of each other?
Right. So sometimes if your spouse continues to criticize, you may need to put boundaries in place. You may need to let them know that you're just unwilling to be treated in that way. And hopefully that would get their attention, because most of the time, our behavior, specifically around criticism, comes from how we were raised and talked to in our past. That it is just a program that's running in the subconscious
It
that's
is.
not something they're actually thinking through. So if you share with your spouse that the criticism is really doing destruction to your heart and to your marriage,
Yeah.
most spouses do want to do something different. So,
97% of them, according to statistics, is they want to see your heart for the way it
yes.
really is. And the same percentage have a hard time seeing it.
Yes.
And so when you bring that up, that's great. When you bring that up in a safe place or a safe way, oh, that would be valuable. I would want to know I'm hurting your heart. I would
Right.
want to know that because I've seen this several times where a parent is being very critical of a child. And I'm thinking in my mind when I see this happen in public, I'm thinking, man, I have no idea what that's going to happen to that child when they grow up and have a spouse. And what is normal is critical.
Right.
What is normal in a mind is critical, and it's not even in my consciousness that I'm doing it. It's a program.
Right.
And then lastly is being able to get support system around you, being able to get good mentors, good fellowship around your marriage that loves your marriage, that will speak truth into your marriage, that you guys can do life with each other. If you find yourself in this critical relationship and you're having a hard time with this emotional safety, if you're having a hard time creating a safe haven in your marriage, we have an emotional safety program. We're going to put the link in the description down below.
That program really helps understand how to communicate with each other on a heart level so that we can really care for each other's hearts in a positive way. Once you've developed that safe haven within your marriage, you really can communicate about anything. So check out that program and see if it's right for you.
So we talked about how criticism and complaining really doesn't work in your marriage. However, there's another option, and that is giving a request. So we've given you 3 different ways that you can make that request to your spouse in an emotionally safe environment. What we've heard from several of you is I would love to see like real live examples around how do you communicate with each other? What words do you use? I remember when we were in marital counseling and they were teaching us how to communicate, I thought it was the weirdest thing of how to clarify what I hear you saying. I was like, I wish I could hear another couple do this, like as an example, so I could learn how to do it. It felt
Right.
weird to me because that's not how I would talk.
Right.
And I imagine that's not how you normally talk.
Right. So I'm going to give you an example of maybe what you're doing now and what we suggest would be a more effective way to communicate with your spouse. So instead of saying, "You're always so messy," try saying, "I'm feeling stressed when the house is a mess. Can we work together to clean it up?" Instead of saying, "You never take me out on a date anymore," try saying instead, "I'd love to go out to dinner with you this weekend. What night would work for you?"
That really sets your spouse up to win. I'm telling you, words can make up your world.
Yeah.
And when you have the right verbiage in conversation or the proper verbiage in conversation, things can go so much smoother. When it's not that way, there's a great opportunity for your spouse to read between the lines and try to figure out something that you're not communicating.
Right.
Maybe not communicating properly.
Right. So let's just do a quick recap. Criticizing and complaining don't serve your marriage. In fact, it's actually creating destruction. Instead, we suggested bring a request to your spouse. Make it simple and concise. Be respectful and be open to compromise. It's so important. And if you're the spouse that's dealing with the criticism from your spouse, we shared a few things to help you work through that. Don't take it personal. Stay calm. Clarify if needed. Set boundaries if needed. And check out the emotional safety program to see if it's right for you. We hope in today's episode that you're really able to see that criticism isn't the most effective way to communicate your complaints. But by bringing a request, you will be on your way to a much healthier relationship. I want to just share really quick about our no complaint challenge.
No complaining.
So I want to just share about our no complaint challenge. This started a few weeks ago when the Lord was really challenging me to look at what I complain about in life and to focus on the good things instead of complaining. And I was starting to see that it was just bringing my countenance down. And then what I started to see is our daughter was complaining. And then I was hearing you complaining. And I'm like, it's coming from every angle. And I was like, we were on a walk and I just felt the Holy Spirit say, let's do a 30-day challenge of no complaining. And so I brought that up and you and Haven were like, yeah, let's do it. You were more excited than Haven was.
I was.
Haven was like, I don't think I can do that. But it just shows that, we get in a habit of complaining about so many things in our life, and it has an impact. It has an impact on my life, but more importantly, the lives around me.
It does.
So we're about halfway
influences.
through. One of the rules was if any of us in our family complain, the challenge starts over. We've started over 4 times. I won't tell you who it was that was complaining. You'll have to just wonder.
Yeah, what you were talking about a while ago, Adele, is this complaining is, if I'm complaining, you can't help but to be affected by it.
Oh.
And it will actually start rubbing off on you. It's very similar to if you watch the news, you're going to feel fear. Yeah. So if you complain, it's going to impact those around you and it influences them to be like that.
Yeah,
it can't help but to impact them.
So much victim mentality too. Complaining comes from this victim mentality. And that has been really eye-opening for me as we've walked through the last several weeks of unfolding our argument and what was underneath it all, and really seeing that victimhood was really at the base of a lot of the issues that we were seeing.
That's video number 2 in that series.
Yeah. Well, all the last several episodes, the links will be in the description below. So be sure and go watch those.
What I also want to share is, if I am having gratitude, that has an impact on you.
It does.
If I'm being positive in my life, that has an impact on you. If
Right.
I'm being fearful, that has an impact on you. If I'm being faithful, it has an impact on you. Just the same as if I'm complaining, it has an impact. And
Right.
it can't help but to rub off on the people around you, especially the ones I influence.
Right. And that was the other side of the challenge, is to replace the complaint with gratitude instead. And it's amazing how it just turns the heart posture around and brings back the joy and the happiness again. It's almost instantaneous.
So here's a couple of things we have within this challenge is every one of us is allowed one time,
One grace.
one grace to complain, and it gets wiped clean.
That's right.
But you only allow one, and it's a 30-day period we're doing the no complaint challenge. And then afterwards, we have a reward attached to it.
Yes.
That once we make it 30 days, and we're going to have to restart each time. Once we make it 30 days, us as a family has already agreed upon what we're going to do to celebrate this.
Right.
And I'm so excited for that.
Yeah.
As a family, we all enjoy coming up with what that's going to be.
Right.
You could do the same thing. I highly recommend it. Take on this no complaint challenge.
I would add in no criticizing as well.
Here's probably one of the easiest ways to ease into it is do a no complaint challenge for one day. Like if you find your whole family is having an issue with no complaining, start with one day. Get an easy win. Get the easy win and when your family starts saying, well, that really is impactful for me to be positive instead of complaining. It will change your family dynamics. It'll change your household. It'll change the way you feel about your family in your house.
Yes.
It really does.
You could celebrate with a bowl of ice cream with sprinkles on top. Something so simple. Hey, thanks so much for all the comments and the feedback that we've been getting lately. It's just been so encouraging to us. It also has had us look at a few things that we're doing and make some pivots. So thank you so much for that. We want to bring the best, most relatable content to you. And the way that we know that is by you communicating with us. So if you would like to submit a question, you can go to our website and submit a question there. If we choose your question to be answered on our show, then you will receive one of our programs as a gift from us. Also, you can comment, share what you're going through in the comments. We have seen a lot of our audience relate to each other's comments and have a thread going on. And it is just so inspiring. It's encouraging, it's uplifting for others. So thank you so much for doing that and engaging with us. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next week. Bye. Bye.
Great. Spouse, where you're actually expressing.
Where you're at. It's 3 tips. Will you say that again? We're going to give you 3 tips.
It is 3 tips, not 4 tips. Yeah. So that was, sorry.
I'm about to talk.
I was too.
Obviously. It has an impact on, it has a picked up. So really at the, what is that?
What is it?
To a much healthier. We want to give you a few tips on how you can.
That's the number one tool I can get. I keep saying number one with my thumb up. So we talked about how criticism. Could they have rhymed the very last part too? I'm feeling stressed when the house is a mess. Do it, rhyme it.
No.
Oh, okay.
We shared 3. Instead, we recommend.
I want to do like a timer. You got to do your monologue in 1 minute or less. A recap.
Yeah, I'm going to try it.
Ready? Put a timer down below.
So thank you so much for doing that, and please continue.
We'll see you next episode. Bye.
Hold on, I wasn't looking.
She wasn't looking.